Marketer of the Day, episode 721. Inspiration, Success, Motivation, Mentorship. Break destructive patterns with prosperity coach Sheevaun Moran. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Sheevaun Moran from energeticsolutions.com, and Sheevaun is a business advisor, a mentor, and a quantum energetics thought leader, and she founded Energetic Solutions to help entrepreneurs and individuals alike achieve amazing results using uncommon ancient principles. And we're going to hear a lot today about inspiration and success and motivation and finding your mentors. We're going to have a lot of fun. Nice to meet you. Glad to be talking to you.
Thanks, Robert. Excited to be here.
Super great. So I know that I introduced you and we read your bio, but in your own words, what makes you stand out and what are you focused on the past 6 months or so?
Yeah, so I would say that most people are really learning how they're having energy conversations out there in the world now in their business. I don't have enough. I'm deficient. The energy's weird. People are finally having those conversations. And so I take and bring energetic solutions to people scaling and never failing in their businesses. And so I look for the deficiencies and teach the CEOs, the owners, or leaders of the business, where those are and how they can harness that and turn that around into something that is going to make the company or department much more whole.
So when you say that these people who are running these companies are energy deficient, what does that mean exactly? Like, what sort of keywords are they expressing to you to say that they're deficient? Are they just like tired or burned out or things aren't working? Like, what kind of beginner state are they in when you come to them?
Yeah, so generally they find me after they have been trying and going after the same goal or mission for a long time. And they may have adrenal fatigue, they're not sleeping well, they have circular thoughts, high emotions, low emotions. A vacation really just never cuts it. They're looking for kind of alternative methods, almost like they're doing retreats and, kind of other alternative substances to really get themselves in a state that is going to be calm or awake or whatever that is. And so they're looking for something outside of themselves. And so I teach them how, one, to find it in themselves, how to access their own energy and clarity and make that simple for them. So get it really back to simplicity so that what happens is the company and the organization or the tribe or whatever they're building becomes more prosperous oriented.
Well, first of all, that is reassuring that we can find the answer within ourselves, and we don't necessarily have to, like you said, like find all these other solutions or these retreats. And it might be that we try this thing and that thing, but then we're still the same person. But at the same time, when you say that the answer is within ourselves, that also seems a little bit scary, right? Like you have to kind of do that self introspection. So how do you even start with that? Like if there's all these things that you say that sound great, of like finding the clarity and the simplicity, but then like what's your process there? How do we even begin to find all those things?
So let's assume somebody has a business where they've been working at it and it's doing okay. It's humming along. Maybe they've got their marketing down. Things are kind of working. But maybe they're a little bit bored or burnt out. Maybe things all of a sudden are starting to break and crack around them. Maybe they're not sleeping well and they're trying a whole bunch of different things. And what has happened is so if you think about this, you go on Facebook and you see family, friends, community, whatever, and you see puppies and you see happiness, and then you see somebody talking about death and dying and family member of this. And then it's like, it's scanning and scrolling through Facebook is a classic example of somebody's moment in, moment out energy state, right? And so what we do is we teach people how to access what do they need most. Because generally we say I need more energy. Oh, I need more time. I need more clients. I need a better funnel system, whatever that is. And it's really getting into let's focus on one thing that is going to solve the giantest problem that is facing them at the moment. So I look, and we have an intake process, and we help them access. In one way, we have them do their own access, and then one way I will take them through a process of how to access what is that one thing that is the greatest problem to address.
And so as far as, what's that? Yeah.
It was like, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's health. And generally, when we're talking energy, the cool part about it with the technology I teach folks, and I take people through these processes, is no matter what it is, there's a solution.
Well, that is good to know. And so you mentioned, so you said that people sometimes they're looking for more money or for more time, but I guess the thing that you say brings it all together is they need to focus and zero in on that one thing. And so it's easy to say, this project or money, but like, do you see like specific things that people like have focused on again and again? And when they focus on these things, like, is there a problem in letting go of the other things? Do you ever hear a lot of like, well, I can't let these other 5 things go because like I need to maintain them? Is there any sort of like resistance where that comes along as far as like deciding on the focus?
Oh, for sure. So people generally, once they have married their own idea of what is working for them, even if it's working a little bit, and there are 5 of them let's say there are 5 of them working. And one's sort of working, one's working better, and they're all kind of working, but one is like where your heart and soul is supposed to be, but you just don't really, give it enough of the right attention. It's really about teaching people how to access rather than the all, find the one. So generally what you asked is, what's a common theme? Most people are looking to solve all of it all in one fell swoop. They're trying to solve everything that is the problem that is on their list in one fell swoop. This is the whole sum of everything. And it's this giant, giant ball of yarn of a trillion different ideas and thoughts and patterns and attitudes and beliefs and ups and downs and systems, etc. And really, there's always one thing that is going to be the greatest provider of income. There's always one thing that's going to be the greatest provider of energy. And we actually tend to not know how to find those things easily.
And I imagine that by having that outside objective person like you, maybe asking the right questions or looking at the right things, maybe people can untangle and escape all of these sort of circular patterns that you say people are in.
Yeah, so generally what will happen is I have a very lengthy intake process. And so what will happen through this process is people will say, oh, well, this relationship in this way isn't working. Or this circumstance is completely toxic and not a good circumstance. Or, oh my God, I'm doing this same pattern again and again and again. I'll give you an example of a client. He works with me a couple times a year, and we just do a big deep dive, and then I send him off on his journey with a bunch of homework. And it'd been a couple of years, and I saw him somewhere. I said, hey, what's going on, John? What's happening? And he started describing. I looked at him, I said, remember when we took you through that process the first time we got together? And you're doing that same pattern again. He said, oh, I actually keep trying to avoid you so I don't have to address this pattern of bringing in a toxic partner. And it was really fascinating. So once he finally saw that it was the same pattern that he'd gone through 4 or 5 times, and he'd been avoiding really letting us do that work there, he then became, his company actually doubled in prosperity and profitability.
And when you describe it in the way that you did it, it's like, well, if you had a root canal, would you avoid the dentist? Well, you're only like maybe there's like a little bit of pain ahead of you as far as solving the problem, but it's like there's the longer duller pain that seems more comfortable for now, but that seems to be more of like a short-term thing. Like you're kind of just letting yourself stay in the slightly painful lands, but the problem isn't getting solved. It seems silly that people do this when you put it that way.
Yeah, it does seem silly once we take them through the process and they look at it and it's just like, dang, I should have known. And it's like, no, you actually shouldn't have known. These are the things that you have decided and you have been trained into looking at or doing or believing that, this kind of partnership is the way to go. Maybe you don't want to do it on your own, so you think you need a partner in this way. And then, but your own inner psychology attracts or brings in the wrong type of partnership, or you have what I call magical thinking of like, oh, they're going to solve this one big area. Same thing when you hire consultant for funnels and stuff like that. I have a whole bunch of folks who recently hired a bunch of folks to help with funnels. And I'm like, okay, but that's magical thinking. You had to really get down and get clear on what it is that you wanted that funnel to deliver so that they could actually either be the right solution, or you could find out really fast that they're not the right solution and hire a better solution. And so most people tend to have magical thinking of like, oh, they're going to be the savior of all of these big ball of yarn that's happening. And so we just look at one thing at a time.
And that's, I like how you put that, because with the magical thinking, I mean, that explains quite a bit of how people sometimes they'll hire a coach, or they'll pay for some service, or they'll buy some course or product or book or something, and then they're not even clear ahead of time on what they want or on what this new tool will do for them, and then they're guaranteed to be frustrated because they don't even have a goal. They just think that, well, this will somehow solve my problem, everything will go away, and it's like, your problems will be solved, but you'll just get new problems, right? You'll pay these bills, but then you'll have more bills to pay. But ideally, it's like the future problems are better than the present problems you find yourself in. And so you mentioned a few times about this process. And so when you say like the process of figuring out like what people need or what they need to do, are we talking like multiple meetings, or like taking a test, or having a long conversation, or like how do people use you to figure these things out?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to see if there's a match, there's a fit, because I'm not for everybody. I don't want to be for everybody. I'm for people who have done a lot of work on themselves. They know enough about their own inner psychology to be like, I need somebody who really has tuned into that, we'll say, higher frequency, so to speak, and really can call me on my stuff in a really gentle way and has experience growing businesses. So that's kind of the folks. And so what we do is we have a conversation, see if there's a fit, see if there's something that I'm excited about that I could do for them, because I totally want to love on my clients and make sure that they succeed. And then it's, well, are they far enough ahead to be really, maybe they just need a deep dive day. Or maybe they just need they just need a short-term circumstance, or maybe they really just need to learn how the energy works in their own inner system. I'll give you 3 different examples to help make this more clear. So there's a guy who has a company who he's very he's a fun human, incredibly smart, has done a lot of work on himself, loves higher energy kind of things, but doesn't really understand it. And really had his business in a funk. He'd really made some funky choices with the processes he was using, the people he'd hired, and the magical thinking that he was in. And so we had a long conversation, asked a bunch of questions. What do you need most? What do you need most? Turns out what he actually needed most, interestingly, is he needed to get clear on some of his own personal relationships. And as soon as we got clear on, we identified that's the area we were going to focus on, we did that work together. His company got out of trouble. And it had nothing to do exactly in the way the company was working. It had to do with his personal relationships and what he was doing with them, how he was engaging with women and men in them, etc. And things started resolving in his business. So that's one example. The next one is more process oriented and scale oriented, a beautiful soul who has a food company. And she'd been given all of the wrong information at the wrong time. So everyone was telling her she needed co-packaging company that would help her scale and get trillions of SKUs out there into the marketplace. But she hadn't even maxed out her own facility, and she hadn't gotten her message clear, and her marketing was a mess. And her sales process was a mess. So what we did is we tore apart. Has taken us 18 months. We tore apart her company. We helped her put it back together. And now she's on QVC and she's in 4,000 stores, and it's at the right timing with the right packaging and the right texture and the right messaging. So that was very deep and that's super laborious. And that had to do with her relationships with her investors and her board of directors, and her own relationship with what she believed sales were. She had a belief that sales were raising funds. She didn't have the belief and understanding that sales were really getting the product out there into the consumer's hands. Fascinating when we really got down to it. And then the third one would be somebody who has been through masterminds or done a bunch of work on themselves, and they really just need a reset to be clear on where is their greatest strength, where is their energy being placed in the wrong direction, and then show them where to put it in the right direction.
Well, fantastic. Well, from hearing you explain those three stories, what it seems like is the common theme with those is that you fit, like, everything's connected, and maybe where one thing is gumming up the works, you fix one thing, and then the other elements can improve there. Like when I don't know much about cars, but when I was younger, I had a kind of a beater car and had a bad alternator, which recharges the battery. Batteries kept dying, but then you fix the thing that solves everything else, then it all finally works, when before it seemed like nothing would work.
That's a great analogy. That's one, you got it, Robert. That's one of the best analogies I've heard from somebody of taking all of this and synthesizing it. So yeah, awesome.
Oh, cool. I feel like I should win a prize or something. And a few times earlier on in our conversation, you mentioned this thing, a concept of like having good sleep. And it seems like, at least from having a conversation today, there's all these abstract concepts, like figuring out, what motivates you and your goals. But just the fact that you kind of kept a couple of times referencing sleep, would you say that that's one of like the hugely important things that all of us entrepreneurs struggle with and maybe need to get right?
3 things: water, sleep, and breath. So we don't drink enough water. We don't sleep well enough for our own unique sleep cycle. We each have unique sleep cycles. So that's kind of fascinating. And I wrote a book on that. And then breath, we actually really are deficient in the way we breathe. We tend to breathe super shallow, and, we're really not expressing our lungs to their capacity. And so that's going to create more anxiety, tension, stress, health challenges, etc. So those 3 things, if every single human, entrepreneur or otherwise, every single human would address those 3 items, their whole world would start to open up and be brighter and lighter.
Well, great. Water, sleep, breath. And I have my water here, and I got a full night's sleep, and I think I have the breath thing fine. And I always forget to like breathe from the stomach, because I've heard that like I guess breathing from your chest and your lungs is the shallow way, is the panicky way, and then more lower breathing is the way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I actually did, because I kept having this conversation with so many people, I actually did an audio for folks, and it's called The Power of Breath, on how to really, really bring breath into your system so that it becomes a natural state. So babies breathe naturally, and by the time we're 5, we learn how to not breathe naturally anymore. So I just take people back through a process as an adult on what to do, so the body remembers what to do.
And so how can people claim that Power of Breath audio?
They can go to my website, SheevaunMoran.com, and I think there's a store on there, and then just type in breath in the search. We've got I've written over a dozen books and got 28 audios, and there's all kinds of cool things on there.
Fantastic. And especially because you got your own mindset figured out, you got your own head on straight. Now you're freed up to crank out the audios, the products, and to help other people because you're not struggling with your own inner demons, it seems like. And so as we're beginning to wind down, and I definitely want to circle back around and make sure that we plug some of the other resources that you have, I want to make sure that we cover maybe a little bit of your own self-improvement and your own improvement in business. Is there anything that comes to mind as far as like the last year or last 6 months or so in anything in yourself or your business where you feel like you really improved and you think that we can all learn from that?
One of the things I think that I think we all get away from is I've been jamming on writing more. I write a lot. I write all of my blogs and all 3 of my companies, etc. I do all the writing for it, but to really dial in to what our clients are looking for, what's going on in the market, and really rehoming in onto writing, copywriting, etc. Getting our message out there and continuing to write. And some people do that through journaling, etc. I've really dove back into that in the past 18 months. There's something that's cool that I do every year at the end of the year, and I basically rip up all of the ideas of what we've done for the past year and say, what kind of products do we have that need to be retired? What things need to be reinvented? Or what things need to be completely brought in based upon what the clientele and the world is going through. And so at the end of the year, I spend a couple weeks and I tear everything up, and then I start fresh saying, like it, ooh, yeah, not doing that. So this year I'll be out speaking in public more. In the past 2 years, I haven't. So each year brings something new, and it's a very interesting concept. After I was reading the book from Andrew Carnegie about him, and at the end of the year he would close all of his mills for 2 weeks to a month, and they would put and install new technology, the latest and greatest new technology every single year for making steel and boiling it and doing all the things they do for steel. And he did that in the Industrial Revolution. So he was always ahead of the game. I didn't know that I was innately doing that kind of technique. It's kind of cool to, pass that on to folks.
And it's reassuring for you because you say, well, cool, I'm doing something right? Andrew Carnegie did something similar, so I know I'm on the right track. And that seems like a really great way to not only physically stay ahead of the game and have the concrete, tangible things in your business in place, but also mentally, it's like you're starting fresh, you're starting anew. You're not bringing in all the baggage. And with the steel making equipment, I'm sure it's like, oh, that old broken down, busted machine where you had to, who knows what, turn the crank just right, and it would always annoy you. Well, it's like now if you have the old websites, the old products are gone, or you have the shiny new computer and everything's fresh. I mean, it seems like that's more mentally healthy, where you don't have to hang on to all the old stuff. It's a new year, it's a new me, and just new things going forward. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, most people tend to just, again, like I was saying earlier, they tend to put it all into one ball of oh, just keep going. And I really know that nature provides a great model for this energy stuff that I do for folks. And if we inhale, we actually eventually have to exhale. So you have to inhale and exhale. So you have to bring things in and then release things, and bring things in and release things. And most people tend to not want to release things.
It's a tough thing to do sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't get solved overnight, or might be a years long or decades long or lifelong process. But luckily, there are people like you to help us out. So along those lines, can you tell us what sort of things people will find on SheevaunMoran.com, and any other resources or anything specifically that you think our listeners should either buy or sign up for or contact you for, or any specific resources you think are really important today?
Oh, that's so nice. I would say if you're inspired by some of the self-help stuff, go to the shop.sheevaunmoran.com store and start out with some of those. We've got, like I said, over a dozen books, lots of different topics. I base every little product. I say those are little products, so they do big, heavy lifting. I base all of those products on digestibility and solutions. So the audios are about 17 minutes long, and the books are anywhere from 20 to 120 pages long, so it's digestible. And then I would say if there's something that you're intrigued by and you want to have a conversation, if you start with the Epic Life Toolkit, I think that's in there. Maybe you go to epiclifetoolkit.com. I think that's where you can go. And that actually starts to unwind and open up those conversations and figure out, where can I get more clear here, and here? And where else could you go? Yeah, if you want to have a deep, deep conversation, then go to, there's like a little wheel that's on the side of, I guess, my face on the top of the website, and poke at one of those and put your information in, and we'll have a conversation.
Well, great. And I tell my listeners that even if you don't think something applies, it's always good and encouraging for guests of the podcast to hear or that they heard of you on the Marketer of the Day podcast. So even if you don't know what you need right now out there in podcast land, go to sheevaunmoran.com and click that contact button and just get the conversation started. Even just tell her that you were impressed or that something helped or was useful for you with Sheevaun on the show. Click on that contact button at SheevaunMoran.com. That's SheevaunMoran.com. And then if you're ready and you say, I need to change, but I just need to get that foundation in place, that's epiclifetoolkit.com. So we'll see you there at the epiclifetoolkit.com or at shop.sheevaunmoran.com. And thanks so much, Sheevaun, for stopping by and for being real and honest with us and tell us what we all need to know. And there are so many people out there that don't even know there's a problem or want to ignore the problem. It's better to just get ahead of it and to look at what people such as Andrew Carnegie or like yourself have done previously and just follow in those footsteps. That seems like a much saner way to go about it. I don't know about you.
I think so. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Sheevaun. Have a nice one. Check out the latest episodes of our podcast on the web at marketeroftheday.com and subscribe to us on iTunes at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes or search the phrase Robert Plank in your iTunes app to find us there.